this time. Question number 2. Fiscal conservatives have long called for zero-based budgeting as a solution to excessive government spending and growth. Please describe zero-based budgeting versus the process in place today. Which formula do you believe would be best for controlling state government spending and growth? And we'll start with EW this time.
Zero-based budgeting. My time is just starting, right? Zero-based budgeting is preferable to what we do now in all kinds of ways. What we do now is baseline budgeting. What we do is we start, and it's politics. We start with what we have, what we've spent. You know, there's always an assumption in government, you know, just before the end of every fiscal year, you know what the usual order is to government? Spend it. Spend it all. Because when we begin budgeting next year, we want to make sure that we've spent everything we had last year to prove that we needed it all, and now we go from there. We need to go back to zero-based budgeting. We need to make every dime, we need to require that every dime is justified. We are tired of seeing the taxpayer dollars expended for purposes that we don't agree with or that waste our money. And the only way to do that is you got to justify every single dime that the government spends. So yes, I support zero-based budgeting rather than baseline budgeting.
Well, I think that anybody who has run a business knows that zero-based budgeting is probably the right approach to go with. And I'm very happy to tell you that that's what Governor McDonnell did this year when he reviewed all of the spending of the Commonwealth. Aren't you glad we've got a fiscally responsible governor for a change? I mean, really and truly. And this guy actually did. He went through the whole budget and called out a ton of spending. So when localities complain about the state cutting spending, what you're really hearing them say is they'd like to spend more. And I don't think that's the solution. I would tell you that the right solution is zero-based budgeting. I'm looking at Delegate Alan Lauterbach. Alan, stand up for a quick second. Alan was one of my mentors in the House of Delegates. And he started the cost-cutting caucus. He started the cost-cutting caucus, and we went after waste, fraud, and abuse. That's where the no self-butchering hog concept came from, and so that's what we've worked on very hard. Oh, by the way, Corey, on 3202, Prince William received $325 million in road money. When you're ready to write that check and send it back to Virginia, maybe we'll send it up here for these folks.
Well, now I'm between the two of them. Thank you so much for this seating. Wow. I've got to mediate. First, I want to tell you how proud I am of Governor McDonnell and to have been able to serve in his cabinet, because what Scott said about him is absolutely true. In those cabinet meetings, every single year before he started the budget, he instructed his secretaries to look at their departments and agencies and tell him where they can cut, and he told them they had to cut every single year. He's a great governor. He also encouraged his state employees to cut. He said to them, I'll make you a deal. If you cut up to, and I think the first year was $175 million collectively in the budget, I'll give you a very small bonus in your December check. So he engaged them in budget cutting. He made it important to them because instead of worrying about how they were going to not have those dollars in their budget again next year, it was personal for them, and that allowed him to do zero-based budgeting. But when you do zero-based budgeting, you get to prioritize every year. You know, the priorities 20 years ago aren't the priorities of today. And when you keep passing a budget along year after year after year, you never look at the priorities for today. You're always looking at the priorities for many, many years before. Lastly, I'd say performance-based budgeting is also important. Instead of having a line item saying, this agency, this much, put a paragraph in there telling us what the agency's going to do when they spend that money. And I'm a big fan of that in combination.
The General Assembly, even though it is Republican controlled, has been something less than fiscally conservative. I'm going to tell you that straight out. During this time that the General Assembly likes to say that they haven't increased your taxes, you know what they have done? They pushed more than $2 billion worth of ERS funding off to a future date. Someday, we're all going to have to pay for that. And not only was it bad enough that they did that themselves, but they forced every school jurisdiction in the state to do the same thing. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't do it. So now we got this big old bill out there that's lying out there because the General Assembly has failed to do its job. This is because they have not practiced zero-based budgeting on a regular basis. Susan and I can tell you, in local governments, we are the bottom. We don't have anybody to pass this off on to. $1 billion worth of unfunded mandates that we've had to work into our budget and keep your tax bills low. That is an additional burden that's been placed on local taxpayers. Every year, for the past several years, under my leadership, we have cut spending. We've cut $143 million worth of spending in 2 years. I've proposed another $9.6 billion this year. Why? Because we got even more state unfunded mandates coming our way that we got to fund, and we want to do it without increasing your tax bills. The state needs to take a chip from the local governments and say, how are you doing it? Because frankly, they're doing a pretty damn poor job.
So zero-based budgeting is where you begin at zero and you build your budget. And I'm sure each of you in here have had to make great adjustments to your family budget as you see the cost of food, the cost of gas, the cost of energy, your taxes, everything is rising. On the point of the local government, Delegate Lingenfelter, I'm glad that you brought up Stafford County. It is a representative democracy, so you're sending your delegates, your senators, your local elected officials, you're giving them the authority. They've been elected to make decisions on taxes, on spending, on schools, on infrastructure. And there's the difference. If you don't like what they're doing, then you vote them out. So I agree with that. And I'm not sure if you all are aware of this. I don't know the exact specifics of the bill, but have you ever heard of Senator Tommy Norman?
Yep.
Yes. Did you know that he has tried to get a bill passed each year where there would be transparency in the budget? Do you know that the conferees, they go and they meet in secret, and then they come out, and then they tell their caucus, you are un-American if you don't vote for this, even though you haven't read it. You're going to vote on it in 5 minutes. And then what is parked in that budget are higher taxes and all kinds of excessive government. Maybe there are good things that are in it. You won't know. So here's the deal. I am encouraging Delegate Lingenfelter to go ahead and let that go through the committee this year so there's transparency in the budgeting process for all of us.
I'm not only a proud social conservative, but I am a proud fiscal conservative. And I have a real world record over the past 15 years of balancing budgets, zero-based budgets, each and every year. And what does that do, folks? It creates jobs. It's simple. I don't understand why our state government and why people who call themselves conservatives believe in incrementalism. Believe that every single year, well, let's just keep up with it. Let's say we're cutting, but we're keeping up with the rate of inflation. That's not leadership. It's wrong. And one of the questions we were asked here is what formula we would use to control spending. I have an answer. How about a formula that results in a negative number for once, okay? How about that? Thank you.
And zero-based budgeting, which I support, would result in those negative numbers. You have to justify each expenditure. Baseline budgeting is most destructible as it imprisons its obligors. I am not on the Senate Finance Committee, though I am on more committees than anyone else in the legislature, specifically because, and I will quote, you are willing to vote against budgets. So therefore, despite my seniority, I cannot be on the budget committee. I have voted, both because of tenure and because of principle, against more budgets, more spending items than anyone in the legislature. I've had 26 years into my 26th year to do that. We should cap our spending at no more than the increase of population and the inflation rate combined. And yes, we can cut. There are ways to cut, but you're not going to cut it by cutting out this cave board. I've already carried legislation that repealed and obliterated 61 different political subdivisions. But the cave board and the others that are being discussed out of taxpayers' pockets collectively amount to less than $40,000 per budget. So it's not the $8 billion that's being talked about.